Hello, and welcome to Hey Boomer. My name is Wendy Green, and I am your host for Hey Boomer. And at Hey Boomer, we are changing the conversation about getting older. Rather than seeing it as declining, we see it as the opening of a potentially exciting, new, and vibrant chapter, a time for exploration, self expression, and learning. Today, we're going to be talking all about friendships. But before we dive in, I wanted to ask you, are you ready to embark on an incredible journey with us by becoming a Boomer believer? As a Boomer believer, you have access to every month, we're going to speak to one of our amazing podcast guests on Zoom. So you'll get to have a conversation with them. Every month, you will also be invited to the Boomer Banter, where we are building a community of friends. We have really interesting discussions right now. We're going through the the 4 agreements, which has really been an interesting conversation. You will also get the designer Hey Boomer baseball cap. It's a limited edition. And there's even more. So go ahead and mark your calendars for the inaugural Boomer Believer, which will start tomorrow. Actually, the kickoff is tomorrow, where we will be talking with Dean King, the author of The Feud, The True Story of the Hatfields and McCoys. It's going to start at 6:30 on Tuesday night, January 30th, 6:30 Eastern Time. And you can sign up to become a Boomer Believer by going to buymeacoffee.com/heyboomer0413. I'm going to put that in the show notes. And I encourage you to do that now because, like I said, the inaugural meeting is tomorrow. So before we jump in to this friendship talk, I want to be completely transparent with you. As the host of Hey Boomer, I know that when it comes to coaching and podcasting, I'm really good. I thrive on that. I love it. I love those roles. But you know what? I'm also a work in progress when it comes to some other things like friendship. I rate myself as an okay friend. I've reconnected with high school buddies on Facebook, but we don't chat on the phone. They're really Facebook friends, which is great. It's fun to see them. I've also had friends in various places along my lifespan when I've lived in different cities. And some of them have stayed friends, but most of them have kind of faded away once I moved away from that city. And I'm the kind of friend that's not a great phone friend. I just find so many other things to do than sit and talk on the phone. So I try to make lunch dates with my girlfriends or dinner dates with them so that we can have some face-to-face time and I don't have to sit on the phone too long. But here's the beauty of it. I've got 1 or 2 friends that really get me, who understand that I'm not the best on the phone, but even if it takes me several weeks, even a month before I will reach out to contact them again, they get it. They love me anyway. We pick up right where we left off. And let's be real. Okay, we do all have a person in our life, or we've had that person in our life. We start to feel like it's a full-time job to be their friend. They need us so much. They're energy drainers. They leave us feeling depleted. They rarely fill us up. It's tough, but sometimes we've got to make that decision to let them go for our own sanity. And we know that is not easy. So I know I'm not alone on this journey of friendship, and we're all figuring out this friendship dance and navigating the ebb and flow of connections. So let's dive in it together, share our stories, learn from Margie, and maybe pick up a few tips along the way. I found Margie Zable Fisher, who is our guest today, through an article she wrote for Next Avenue, which is an online magazine. The article was titled, How to Prevent Being Estranged from a Friend. Margie said in her article, family estrangement is upsetting, but friend estrangement can be just as or even more distressing than family estrangement, especially as we get older. In fact, a study by Michigan State University showed that friendships have a much bigger influence on our physical and emotional state as we age than our family relationships. We're going to dig into that. So we all know friendship is important. Let's meet Margie and start this conversation. Hey, Margie.
Hey, Wendy, thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you agreed to join us. I want to do a brief bio of you so people know a little bit about you.
Great. Okay.
So Margie Zable Fisher is a writer and an advocate for positive aging. She writes for AARP Magazine, Fortune Well, and Next Avenue, as well as for businesses and organizations. She is the co-author of a novel with her mother. It's a coming-of-age story about a new retiree who wants to finally live the life of her dreams. Sounds great.
Yeah.
She is currently submitting it to agents, so hopefully that will be out soon and we can all enjoy that.
Yes.
Margie also created the 50-year-old mermaid community to connect with women over 50 who want to live their best lives, and we will share the link to that at the end of the show. And after age 50, Margie started competing in triathlons and playing pickleball. She lives with her husband in Florida and looks forward to visits from her college-age daughter. She enjoys word games, books, and thriller series. You are into everything.
Um, Quite a bit, yes.
I can't wait till that book comes out.
Me either.
Yeah. So give me a little insight into why you chose the topic friends and friend estrangement when you decided to write this article.
Yes. So, in a perfect world with my writing, every piece of writing I do would meet three criteria. So, first and most important to me is that it helps people. Second would be something that I'm interested in. And third would be something that I want to learn more about so that I can, in essence, get paid to learn, right?
Perfect.
So, yeah, luckily, this article on friend estrangement was actually a good example of a piece of writing that met that criteria. So, obviously, it's a topic, especially with my midlife friends, that women especially are really interested in. So, I knew these things had come up about friendship, toxic friendships, issues with friendships, whatever. It was always coming up in conversations. So I knew it would be something that helped people. And personally, it's something that interested me because I'm interested in friendships myself. And I wanted to learn more about friendship estrangement because selfishly, there is a longtime friend, I should say, who I wasn't sure I wanted to stay friends with.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure what to do about it. So when I don't know something, I research it. That's what I do. I research things. So I said, you know what? This is probably something other people have wondered about. And I pitched the article to Next Avenue, which is the PBS website for people over age 50. And I should tell folks here, I don't know if you can link to it, but it's nextavenue.org. It's a really great website.
Yes, I'll definitely link to it.
Yeah, great. And so they accepted it, and I did my research and wrote it.
Well, I found it so fascinating. And, I mean, we all know that loneliness is really becoming an epidemic,
Yeah.
especially among older adults and interestingly enough, among the young kids too, because they've been kind of stuck behind the wall of the computer and their phones. But the article, the quote that I quoted you on from the University of Michigan about the impact of friendship on us as we age and the impact of losing friends as we age. Can you go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think, when we're younger, in some of this is even, hormonal and just, genetically, our family is very important. We have a drive to create families and for family relationships and that kind of thing. As we get older, our kids do other things. We have more free time. Older people get older, they perhaps die on us. So the family that we have really ends up not being as large. And our friends are people that are the ones that we can often lean on for support. And
Mhm.
also, family, again, depending where we are in our lives, sometimes we don't live near our family. Sometimes we've moved away, sometimes they've moved away. And then we need these friends to help us with just what you said, with loneliness, and also to be part of our social lives. So they really are important, friendships.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was so interesting to me. So what what makes a good friend, Margie? Do you have a definition or is it individual?
I do have a definition because I was wondering that myself. And I'm going to give you the actual, there've been studies that actually wrote about the top traits we want our friends to have. And I'll give you a couple of them. The most important was someone who's honest,
Hmm.
ethical, pleasant, available, discreet, tolerant, empathetic, fun, smart, and similar. So that's kind of a lot of
That's
stuff.
a lot. That's a
And
lot.
I'll unpack that in a minute. But the most undesirable qualities were dishonesty, competitiveness, and impatience.
Hmm.
So I think how we could say it is we want someone to be, you know, we want to be able to trust someone. A lot of these things have to do with trust, honest, ethical, that kind of thing. Discreet, that's all about trust. Pleasant, available, these are all kind of fun. These are things where you enjoy being with someone. One thing I would say is, since honesty comes up twice, and this can be a little bit tricky, honesty can be a double edged sword. And I've had this happen in my own relationships, but there are sometimes, and it's hard to know what's right. Sometimes you can be really blunt, and sometimes that works. But for the most part, I would follow this advice by radio host Bernard Meltzer, and this I included in my article. But if you want to talk to a friend of yours and you're thinking about saying something and you're not sure, and it falls under the honesty category, I would say following his advice is this. Before you speak, ask yourself if what you are going to say is true, is kind, is necessary, and is helpful. If the answer is no, maybe you should not say something instead of saying something. So these are words I had read long ago, and I'm always trying to remember this in my interactions with people. But this is one of the reasons that friendships become estranged, is because something in here doesn't go right. So maybe what you say is true, but it's really not kind, and it's really not helpful, or it's one or nothing. So with your words are really powerful.
Words are really powerful. And it
They
makes me think a little bit about what we've been talking about with empathy, over the last few weeks,
Yeah,
because, and estrangement, because if you feel like you're going to say something that your intention is, I'm going to help you because I'm going to share my wisdom with you, or I'm going to share my insights with you, or whatever. Um, most of the time people don't want you to do that. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear that you like them and admire them and respect them. And yeah, so maybe to start with a question like, would you be okay with me saying something about whatever, the way you wear your hair or whatever?
Exactly. Or wait for them to ask the question first. If someone says to you, "Do you like my haircut?"
Right.
They're basically opening it up to some kind of reaction from you, right? But if you don't like someone's haircut, you know, do you really think that it's there's any reason you should ever share that with a friend? What are you going to change? You're not going to make them feel better. They're not going to change their haircut, right?
Right.
So you got to think about sort of really, sometimes same with your spouse. A lot of friendship things are similar to relationships with a spouse or a partner. How you say things and being tactful and all that stuff, they're both important relationships. So just be careful with your words.
Yeah. Yeah. Such good advice. So you mentioned it. I mentioned in the beginning this toxic friend who's draining our energy, and um, but they've been a friend a long time. We just don't know what to do about that. Would you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. And I was lucky that I kind of grabbed some of these friendship experts and I asked for a script because sometimes I'm better in writing since I'm a writer, and I'm like, what's the script I can use? So that's in my article, some of that scripting. But basically, I guess the first thing you would need to know is to determine first if someone is a toxic friend would be how you feel when you're around them. And it's actually pretty darn clear to me how I feel around a
Mhm.
toxic friend. And this is standard. And it's basically if I feel dread. Like whenever a certain person's name comes up and I need to be in communication or see them, I feel a sense of dread. So that's
Mm.
kind of clear. It's the
Yeah.
same kind of thing, right? If you feel drained, exhausted, stressed, thinking about that person, spending time with that person, or if you feel bad about yourself if they don't make you feel good. Any of those things are really red flags that are worth exploring in terms of toxic friendships. In fact, I'll give you an example from a couple years ago. I had a friend, I will put friend in quotation marks, who used to make fun of my parenting skills.
Mm.
And I laughed along with her, right? Because I was kind of, I was easygoing. But one day, I don't know why, but I thought to myself, you know what? That's not really funny. Like, I don't really need to be put down for my parenting skills. Was I the world's greatest mom? No. But, the silliest things, the way I had fed my daughter and it wasn't, just perfect and whatever she would say I was sloppy. I'm like,
Yeah.
that was just sort of the icing on the cake with some other stuff. But ultimately, I realized our friendship was toxic. So that's one example.
Yeah. And I think what at least has happened in my experience is, if they've been a friend a while, and you kind of a lot of times these toxic friends, you recognize that their insecurities are what are coming out, right? And so you feel like, oh, I need to give them the benefit of the doubt. I need to be, maybe if I try harder and if I'm kinder and if I'm, at what point do you finally say, I just can't do this anymore?
Well, you'll feel a breaking point, I think.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you do you want me to talk about ghosting and how
Yeah,
that
let's right, because that's where we get to. We're like,
that's where we get
okay, right? I don't
okay.
want to see them anymore. I don't even want to confront this.
Right.
So,
So most of us are conflict averse, right? We don't want to have conflicts, and certainly not with friends, longtime friends. It's not fun, right? Plus, we don't want to get in an argument, all that kind of thing. So one of the things I've done in the past is I've ghosted friends. And what that means is it's something, the term ghosting was really used originally to describe romantic relationships when people on an online dating site would connect with someone and then they wouldn't hear back from them, that they were ghosted. Well,
Mhm.
the same kind of thing can happen with friendships where, you are trying to get in touch with a friend, either to talk with them or to get together with them, and they ignore you or they just are never available, but generally they just stop communicating with you. That's also ghosting. So, a lot of the time, most of us will think, well, the easiest thing to do is to just check out, check out of this relationship, be done with them. And it kind of like in theory, it sounds like it would be a good thing. But studies had shown when I did my research that friendship ghosting can be just as upsetting as relationship ghosting. Okay. Like romantic relationship ghosting. And then I also found out from these psychologists and other friendship experts that it isn't really fair to ghost someone. And when you think about it, it makes sense because, you're really trying to pull away, but you're not offering any closure,
Mm.
right? Because you're basically stopping all communication. And you may or may not, I'm the kind who doesn't want to go back and forth about issues. So, you may or may not have even told the person what the issue was. It's just kind of like, I'm done, But in theory, if you have a friend, they deserve the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they didn't realize it. Maybe they need to be educated, right? So they really do need to hear these kind of things. And, I guess it's up to us to be clear about that with other people and also ask others if we're being ghosted, which we can be too. If you're not sure, open yourself up and say, hey, is there something I did to offend you? Are we okay? You know, you can do the same thing for them, and it's a process that gets everything moving both ways, so that you're more comfortable confronting others and also receiving information back from them. Does that make sense?
It does, and it makes me think of a person that, like you said, none of us like conflict, right?
Right.
And there is a person that I have just kind of cut off contact with, and
Hmm.
it's probably been months now. Um, so is it more painful in your research? I don't know if you found this in your research or even asked this question, but could it be more painful to open it up again now, or is that still a better thing to do? And maybe we decide together it's not worth being friends, or maybe we decide together, wow, that was a big misunderstanding. We need to fix that.
Yeah, that's a great question because I have the same issue. Because a lot of us, we're sort of in limbo, right? A lot of times you're kind of like, well, I'm kind of pulling away, but I'm not exactly sure and whatever. According to the research, and sadly, I agree with this, even though it requires work. Yeah, and I'm in the same boat. I have a long time one I have to deal with. That yeah, we probably should, I guess, put our big girl pants on and say, there's something we need to talk about. You might have noticed I haven't been around as much. There are things you can bring up, and I'm sure the other person is interested in hearing about all this. Or you could, if you're totally done and you really, really are done, you could just come up, and I've seen this too, and say, what I need right now is to not have this friendship anymore. So I'm just letting you know that, and I wish you well.
Yeah.
So, you can be as clear as that, or you can open it up for a give and take. But yeah, the whole key is closure for both sides.
Yeah. And I think that you're right, even though it's uncomfortable.
Yes, very.
Sometimes, and I've learned, and I'm sure you've learned, sometimes the most uncomfortable conversations can really have some positive outcomes,
That's
especially
right.
if you listen.
Yeah, we learn the most from negative stuff, right? Or scary stuff or
Very
uncomfortable stuff. So you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about, we growing up, like it was easy to make friends, right? You're on the playground, you're in school, you're wherever in the neighborhood. as we get older, and especially once we retire, Margie, and we're working from home like you are and like I
Oh,
am, you don't see people that much. So we know it's important to
yep.
have friends. And how many friends do you need or want is another question. But how do you find new friends as we move into this next stage of life?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, let me tackle the number of friends. And there's a very well known researcher named Robin Dunbar. He's British. And the summary is that the average in all his studies, the average number of friends was 5 friends
Mm.
that people had. And then they had up to 150 acquaintances or people they knew. And you couldn't go beyond that and just sort of like be in communication with people.
Right.
But that's like, if you do any kind of research, that's the first thing you'll hear. Now, again, I'm I don't think, especially, I think when you're younger, that makes much more sense. I think when we're older, we end up shrinking the number. Like you mentioned, you had 1 or 2 close friends. I just had a conversation with a friend about this same thing. We get choosier and we have different interests. We no longer have to be friends with the parents of our daughter's best friend in school, because they always play together. If we don't really find a friendship there, right? Or that kind of thing, we can choose the people we want to be with, and we know time is limited, right? I mean, especially after 50, we know we don't have unlimited time. We actually think about time. So we don't want to waste it spending time with people,
Right.
right? But finding friends is a big, big issue that people talk about all the time. And the easiest way, it's hard for me to say because I'm really involved in things like pickleball, where I've met a gazillion people. I mean,
Mhm.
literally. And I think probably everyone does that plays pickleball. But, for other people who might not have sports or other things like that, volunteering has been shown to not only make you feel good, but it's also a place to make friends. And doing anything that interests you is a good way to meet friends because you're automatically going to connect at least on one level with someone, and that will be a shared interest.
Mhm.
Any kind of hobbies, music. There's so many things that can be done, art, even, you know, beginning painting classes. There's many, many things you could do. And then even social media, if you don't like to go out and about, there are tons of groups online where people really have a lot of good conversations, and actually that can be okay too.
Mm.
So, it's really what you're interested in. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? Do you have family members? Do you have a spouse or partner? Depending on what you need, look for people that fill those gaps and look for friends in those areas.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Sheila has a question, and it kind of relates to what we had just talked about. She says, if it's been a long time, like several years, that the
Uh-huh.
friendship ruptured, is
Wow.
going back to repair this possible?
Well, again, repair is a good word. Okay, repair to me says like you're still interested in it. So
Mm.
if you're the one doing the ghosting and you want to repair it, absolutely. Absolutely. But um if you just happen to use that word and you don't really mean it, if it's been that long, it might be done. So it really depends on the circumstances.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, though. If it's something that's important to you,
And time
then
doesn't matter.
right,
Yes,
make the effort
absolutely.
and be prepared for it not to be repaired, but at least make
Exactly.
the effort.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you have 0 expectations, you have nowhere to go but up for this one.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah, totally.
Um, so I wanted to talk about intergenerational friendships. I've read a lot about that too.
Yes.
You talk about that in your article and in some of the other things you've written. Um, Sometimes that's even harder, right, to find the intergenerational friends. But I have found that, like, I have a 45-year-old friend. She's the same age as my daughter, and it's really nice to be able to bounce things off of her. And I have older friends, so yeah. What is your research showing that is really good about having these intergenerational friends?
It's a great point. Most of the research around intergenerational friendships talks about the standard intergenerational friendships like an older person and a grandchild, okay? Grandparent and grandchild. But to me, I mean, I don't even know if that counts as a friendship. I mean, that's
Yeah,
basically a familiar relationship. What you're saying makes the most sense to me. I find that friendships one generation apart are really important. So in your case, you found someone younger than you, one generation younger, basically, right?
right.
And I'm a Gen Xer, so I have a lot of boomer friends. And to me, those are super important because, there's enough of a connection that you can understand things, you have some shared history, you can see the world in the same way, but you can appreciate the life lessons that each generation can offer. You might be able to tell her stuff you've gone through, and she may be able to tell you some cool stuff happening now in the world that you didn't know about, right? So I think those one generation removed friendships are super important.
Yeah, they also give us insights, right? Because
Mhm.
if I'm having some kind of issue with my daughter and I bounce it off of her,
Exactly.
she's like, "Oh, well, have you thought about it like this? Because that might be how she's looking at it."
Right, and when you hear it from your friend, you don't have the same sort of stress and nervousness as if you were talking the same way to your daughter, right? You can have a separate objective conversation with your friend of that age, so that
Yeah,
helps too.
absolutely. Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah. Oh, here's a good question. Sheila, another question from Sheila. Thank you. She says, "What are some of our misconceptions around friendship and loyalty?" Ooh,
Gee, Sheila,
I know
you could
that's a
write some
good
new
one.
articles here. Friendship and loyalty. You know what? Oh, that is such a great question. Let's see if I can answer it. Okay, so I think, and I'm going to see if I don't know if loyalty comes up as one of the traits, which would be surprising if it doesn't. I'm looking to
I
see
don't
my,
remember you
I
mentioning
don't
it.
think loyalty is one of
Yeah.
them, which is really surprising because to
Yeah.
me, loyalty is really, really important, right? I mean,
Mhm.
we expect our family members to be loyal. Like I expect my husband, my daughter to always have my back, right? But I expect my friends to be loyal too. But I guess we allow them, and this is where the tricky part comes in. Loyalty is a tricky word. Loyalty is basically blanket. No matter what someone does, whether they're a murderer, whether they say something horrible, whatever, you're still going to be stand behind them. But I guess in a true friendship, there are ways to be carefully honest, and we discussed, how to provide that information. That is being more loyal and true, being more true to a friend or a friendship than just loyalty. But I think on the whole, loyalty in general is important to friendship. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm wondering if it depends on how we define loyalty, like are we expecting them to be available to us all the time because they're a friend? Is that what we're calling loyal? Or are we expecting that, like you said, they'll have our back? Um, yeah, so I think we have to get clear with ourselves on what we're looking for when we're thinking about loyalty and friendship.
That brings up a really good point because one of the researchers mentioned, I'm not sure this is in the article, but we can actually say those words to someone like it's really like if someone does something great for you that you like that was a loyalty thing, whatever that means, you might say, I really appreciated it when you stood up for me when someone was gossiping about me behind my back. That's really important to me in a friend. So there are ways to reinforce specific traits in whatever definition you describe loyalty, but explaining it as an action that you like helps the friendship in terms of expectations. So
Super
you can do
important.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. That is super important.
Yes.
And Susie, thanks. Yeah, she says it's a great point about intergenerational friends. Super important and
Yeah.
enriching.
Yes.
Enriching.
Sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yep.
So so before we wrap up, um, do you have some ideas about nurturing friendships? Because it takes time to be a good friend, right?
Yeah. And I tell you what, I've done I just wrote something recently about women's brains in midlife, and how they change, and it's really fascinating. I wrote about that at Next Avenue also. It's called a book called The Upgrade. But the point is that sometimes it's hard to remember stuff. So, especially midlife and beyond, especially boomers, we need to make real efforts. And I do something kind of nutty, but I have a really hard time remembering my friends because I have friends and I want to be in touch with them, but I have other things on my mind.
Mm.
So I hope you can't see it because I don't want anyone to see the name.
We can't
Actual
see it.
names. I have Uh-oh. Let me move over. Okay. I have a whiteboard with a list of all my friends' names, and I'm gonna look at. I have one, two. At different times I've had different iterations, but now I have three different columns. So one column is friends that I want to have lunch or dinner with, just me and another friend. They're local. Another column are couples friends that I want my husband and I to go out with.
Mm,
In the third column are people I need to have a call with or a text with that live farther away, but I want to stay in touch with. So the first thing I would say is that's my system. Your system could be whatever. And if you have a good memory, great. But I mean, I literally sometimes put on the calendar if there's certain people I want to reach out to, like, you know, reach out to Ellen and Nancy. I'll even put that on my calendar. So the point is, have either a system or make sure every so often, whatever that timeline is, that you reach out to people because putting the time in is really critical, whether it's in person or whether it's via phone or via text. Everything varies, but that's how it works. So when you're in the car or the pool or you have a few minutes, if you're not sure, and I'm not sure, I'll look on my list and say, oh, I haven't talked to that person in a couple months. I really want to talk to them. So I'll make a phone call. Or if we're planning out our Saturday nights, which we like to do, I'll
mhm,
say, these are the people I want to get together with. And some people aren't on that list that I know.
mhm.
Okay. But these are the people I actively want to have a friendship with because the other problem is we also get complacent. So we all have friends that'll may not be our favorite, but they'll always ask us to go out places, kind of like when we were young, right? Except when we were young, we'd always go out all the time. Well,
Right.
right, like I don't want to always have a default yes if it's people that I don't really want to be with. So I want to actively choose who I want to be friends with. So these are some ways to take back the power in the friendships that you actually want to have so that
Mhm.
you're in control of that.
It's a great idea, and Susie and Philip both are lined up with you on that, and I think it does make a lot of sense because we do get busy, and we do, and what I have also found, Margie, is sometimes I'll be like, oh, I'm tired, it's cold, I don't want to go out.
Right?
But once you make that commitment and you get yourself there,
Yes,
you enjoy it.
absolutely. And you have friends, and some friends are great for helping you do that too.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Let's see. And Philip also made a comment. He says, I believe that our boomer demographic desperately needs a few close friends, as
Yes.
many are alone, away from family, no family, beginning to think of dying alone,
Yep.
helping people get a few close friends seem paramount.
Absolutely agree. Yep.
Yeah, and so I think our role as a good friend is to be that person that also helps those of us who don't get out or don't want to get
Yes.
out, to be there for them. Just drop by with some groceries or something sometimes is a good thing to do.
And by the way, that that's a good case for intergenerational friendships too.
Mm.
Okay.
Hmm.
I have some older friends. It's funny you should mention that, especially during the pandemic. I had some older friends that really did not want to go out and about, and I didn't mind. So I would pick up groceries or, whatever. So, yeah, they may be more mobile. Some people don't like to drive at night.
That's
But,
right.
so that may be, if you have an intergenerational friendship, it may be more likely that a younger person might be willing. So, there's trade-offs with
Hmm.
everything. Yeah, to look at the big picture of your life and say, what do I like to do? What can I offer? What can I offer as a friend? What do I want in friends? What does my life need? These are all things that are worth considering.
Margie, I think this has been an incredibly helpful conversation, and I appreciate all of the comments that we've received because people are obviously taking away a lot from this.
Yeah.
Let me tell them how they can find you.
Okay.
So Margie has a website. That's Margie Z or Zeta or however you want to say it,
Yep.
margiezfisher.com. And that's where you'll also be able to find the 50-year-old mermaid link, correct?
Yes, and I also send out a monthly email to my subscribers about happy and healthy aging tips, and I would love anyone to sign up at that same website for that too.
Awesome. You can also email Margie directly if you have comments or questions, or you want to invite her to speak or write for you. And you can email her at margiezfisher.com.
Yes.
And as I mentioned, the 50-year-old mermaid, there is a Facebook group called The 50-Year-Old Mermaid, and
Mhm.
50 is 50.
Yep.
So go ahead, check that out, join the group. And, there's a lot of fun things there. So thank you so much, Margie.
Thank you.
Um, and I love it. I love seeing all those conversations. That was fun.
Yes.
And I want to encourage you all to become a boomer believer. Do it now so that you can join us tomorrow night when we talk to Dean King. And you do that by going to buymeacoffee.com/heyboomer 0413. And that's where you can join just the banter if you want, or you can become a boomer believer so you get both. Or if you're not ready to become a member, you can just buy me a virtual cup of coffee. So it's $5, however much you want to contribute if you're enjoying the show. So that's buymeacoffee.com/heyboomer 0413. All right, over the past 4 weeks, we have talked about estrangement between siblings, between parents and their adult children, within families, and now about friendship. Next Monday, I'm actually going to be traveling back from my nephew's wedding, or one of my nephew's weddings. So I'm going to record a overall summary, takeaways, things that we have learned over the past 4 weeks that, maybe they've all been all over the place. So I'm going to try and put them together in one episode that you can watch or listen to, even though I won't be with you live. And then the following week, February 12th, we will be starting a new series around caregiving. And in that series, we're going to be talking about the journey from being a care partner to a caregiver. We're going to be talking about solo aging, as Philip brought up, and who's going to take care of you, but also who's going to ask you to take care of them as a friend. So that's going to be part of that discussion. And then we're going to talk about, from a adult child's perspective, what it means to be a caregiver for your parent. So, lots. This is great. This has been great, Margie. Thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So continue to embrace this time of your life with exploration, self expression, and learning. And I'd like to close by reminding you that Hey Boomer is produced by me, Wendy Green, and the music at the opening was written and performed by Griffin Honrado, who is a student at the North Carolina University School of the Arts, and my grandson. So that is very sweet.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, y'all. See you next week. Thanks, Margie.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.